Here's just a quick little tutorial to kind of show you how to touch up certain areas with air dry varnish. Now, I have noticed that sometimes, especially in the neck crease, so is what I've had it happen to, the varnish can get stressed, whether it's been bent or squished. It can get distressed and it kind of looks a little white and kind of flaky. Definitely don't pick at it, but what I have found that has resolved the issue, and I haven't had any other continuation of that flakiness, was to add some air dry varnish. This one is Ultimate Fusion. You honestly could use almost any air dry matte varnish that you can get from one of the doll suppliers. This one just is something that I just had handy. I'm using here, it's just a makeup applicator for, like eyeshadow. I buy them in bulk. And then I also have a piece of a sponge that I tore off. I like to have a little bit of a jaggedy edge, nothing too sharp because I don't want to leave lines. So basically you can use the sponge, or you can use the applicator, or you can use both. You can use the applicator to apply the varnish, and then you can use the sponge to sponge it out. But either one really does work, especially for a crease. So basically, I'll put a little bit of that varnish in a container. You can use a clear piece of plastic. You could use a paper plate. You don't need much. This was even overkill. This was more than I needed. But I will dab the makeup applicator in, and I'll make sure I kind of dab it off to the side too, just to get some of that off, because you don't want a glob on there. Even I think this much is probably a little more than needed, but if you work quickly, it should be fine. Air dry does tend to sort of dry pretty quickly, but to make it to where it's really fully dry, I would not handle your doll for about 5 hours after you apply this. It will seem dry within about 10 or 15 minutes, but it still could easily be manipulated or something stick to it. A lint is a really big thing. I don't recommend leaving the clothes on the baby. If you guys are doing this on your own, I would remove all clothing and make sure you're working on a lint-free area, because lint will stick to this. And once it dries, it's really difficult to not see the lint that has applied itself. So as you can see, I'm just kind of working in the cracks, but I'm dabbing. I'm not wiping. I'm not brushing. I'm dabbing. And that's really important to get that spread evenly so you don't have any buildup. And then to use the sponge, it's very similar. I'll just take that little teeny piece of sponge and dab that in as well, just off towards the corner. And then I will go back into the crease and dab again. And you want to make sure you're not going too far out of that crease, because this doll in particular is heat set varnished. So, and then to apply air dry, it could actually change the texture appearance a little bit. So I try to just stick within that crease and not come out any further than I really need to. So on this leg, I did the same thing. I'm going to use the sponge and dab, 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 dab. Make sure you just don't brush it or wipe. Use a dabbing motion. And then once you get all the creases, completed, then you just go ahead and let that dry. I would say a good 5 hours before you handle it. I usually go 6 hours, but I know they say oftentimes it'll say dry within 2 hours. The longer you give it to dry without handling, the better it is. And this is a layer of protection, so make sure it's good and dry before you handle the baby.